that stood out to you. And that's what that clarity is, that it's like all of a sudden no one else really exists for a moment, and that's the time to take notice.
Well, it wasn't like that. I mean, it wasn't like the lights dimmed and it was just us in the world. No, it was just me dancing with this attractive woman, and the whole time I'm kicking myself. I'm like, you idiot! You don't tell a woman you're obligated to dance with her. The Career Challenges Podcast, a collection of stories about overcoming professional hurdles and learning lessons the hard way. Thank you for joining me. I'm your host, Kyle Werkerly, Certified Ghostwriter. My guest for this first official episode is Marty Vids, business mentor and host of the Marty Vids show based out of Peregrin Beach, Australia. Yes, Australia. My very first guest is international, and it doesn't stop there. Although we do start talking about career paths, we get off on a tangent about life stories, meeting our spouses, and how the word obligation is involved. So please welcome Marty Vids. And Marty, can you tell me why you believe when you're employed with a company, your abilities are purchased wholesale and sold retail?
Well, that comes back to my banking days, Kyle, when I basically always set my intentions to model the top performers within the bank, and I wanted to do well. And when it came to trying to get a pay rise, it was always so difficult. And I always try and forward plan and say, this is what I'm looking to do in the next 6 months, really put my best foot forward. But it was so tough to get that 2 to 3% incremental pay rise. And one day I saw what I was actually generating in my portfolio, which was something over $5 million in basically fees coming back to the bank in my position. And I was getting paid $50,000 to $60,000. And I just thought, those numbers don't quite stack up for me. Like, I know they've got branches, I know they've got infrastructure to cover, but I thought, wow, that is a big discrepancy in regards to my own personal return on effort. And as an employee, you've got safety, you've got security, and you're getting paid each fortnight or weekly or however often you do get paid. So there is some upside to that security. But for me, I always had that entrepreneurial instinct, and I think that came out of being in a family grocery store growing up, that I already understood margins, and I understood that I had more of a perceived value as potentially a business owner, giving my services out and charging myself out at retail, as opposed to just being paid wholesale for my abilities. So it was a big aha moment. I was 27 years of age, and I thought, yeah, I've got security, and yes, there is job progression here, but I felt like I was leaving a lot on the table, not only financially, but I thought almost spiritually as well, in that I had a lot more to offer, and I wanted to keep expanding my abilities, and I wanted to really be able to explore what my capabilities were in the market. So yeah, but that was a big aha moment for me when I saw that figure of so many million that I was producing, yet I was only getting paid a very small portion of that.
Yeah. So when you worked at the bank and you had this aha moment, would you say that's when you immediately began kind of pursuing your business mentoring?
Yeah, I thought there was a mental decision at that point that I needed to explore other opportunities, but it still took me another 6 to 9 months to actually transition out of the bank. And I started a mortgage broking company called Mortgage First. And mortgage broking back in the day, back in 2000, people in Australia anyway only went to mortgage brokers, or they thought they only went to mortgage brokers where they couldn't get money from the main banks. And so really, it was the start of an educating process to the market of the value of competition and choice, and maintaining the professionalism of the bank standards to really support people to save money. But that was really a 6 to 9 month bridge that I had to cross. And the main thing that I transitioned in my own head was I really had to look to be a top performer in my employment, like in my role. I had to look at things differently. So rather than potentially go and just tick the boxes, I really had to ask myself deeper questions like, what does it take to be a great performer in my role? It's not watching Jerry Springer at lunchtime with my friends and maybe having a long lunch at the pub as I would have done in my early 20s.
Yeah.
It was about transitioning and actually starting to model the top people environment and start to do some of the behaviors they would do, and then start to look externally from the bank. And I was fortunate when I did that. I had 3 job promotions pretty much within 6 months. And I wanted to hit the ground running when I went into business, and I wanted to carry the attitudes that I would need because I knew business would be challenging. But I wanted to make sure I was that type of person while I was in my job, so to speak. So that was, and I was fortunate. I had a mentor that guided me, that said, don't just float and finish 7th in your life. Really set your goals, set your outcomes. And even if they're a little bit delusional now, doesn't matter. Hold your vision and start putting the daily activities into practice to start moving you towards those outcomes and visions. So I was very fortunate to have the right guidance at the right time to help that transition into building a business. So, yeah.
Yeah. So you had the guidance from your own business mentor. Do you feel there were other things in your life that prepared you to make that leap when you had your aha moment?
Fantastic question, Kyle. And I think it all starts in the home. But we were very fortunate in having a family grocery store that I was able to run the bread stand when I was 7 years of age. And I learnt very quickly that which customers would buy what bread. So I would have that bread waiting for them on the counter. 80% of the time I would be right. But the thing is that customer care was really an important lesson, and they would give me a tip because I'd put the milk out if I thought that they were buying milk, which you start to realize customer patterns at a very young age. And even when the bread delivery guy came, I would go and help him bring the bread out from the truck because I knew that he would throw in a couple of extra loaves of bread, which and I remembering I'm maintaining the profits of the bread stand. So it's like, it was really great because I got to understand what things did cost wholesale and what I could sell them for retail. So my parents I'm very lucky and honored that they had that vision to allow me to be in control of that bread stand. And, back then, $15, a week, which is probably child labor, really, slave labor.
Definitely.
But that's a lot of mixed lollies and yo-yos back then when you're 7 and 8.
Oh,
so
okay. So it evens out.
That's right. So I was very, that was really fantastic. And then all of a sudden, through things like, I was an advocate of, I always enjoyed sports like tennis and cricket, which is, I think, baseball on Valium, if you haven't seen cricket before. But it's all that sport was really good because, again, it was all about collaboration. It was all about teamwork. So I was picking up skills through sports, through business. And then I also loved English literature at school. So my interests were diverse, where I love conceptualizing things and bringing new concepts together and interpretation. So I think I had a diverse range of experiences that I could bring together and simplify into something that I guess forged a light for my life or a road for my life forward. So it was very, very unique, but I don't think too unique compared to others. I think others all have diverse experiences, and it's about bringing them together in your own way that you enjoy, that can add value to other people. I think it's as simple as that at the end of the day, but sometimes it takes a lot of complexity to get back to that simplicity. So, yeah, that's my background.
That's a great background, great story. And so your title now is you're a business mentor, right?
Yeah, well, that transitioned out of building 2 businesses. I built Mortgage First, which was an award-winning company here in Australia, and also then Mortgage 500, which went to the next level in regards to what we offered in our businesses. But both I exit out of those businesses successfully. founded both those businesses, co-founded Mortgage First, founded Mortgage 500. And my claim to fame is, like, people talk about the awards and they talk about the financial success, but my pride comes into never losing a team member over 17 years, which is quite extraordinary. But I always built a vision, built a culture, built an excitement and enthusiasm around the businesses, and always showed interest in our people's outcomes and what they wanted to achieve. And I love being a part of a team and winning awards together. Not that you go out specifically looking to win awards, but just we wanted to build a great business, and we wanted to build something of fantastic value to the market that we could really empower people financially. And once I sold those businesses, I thought, well, do I do it again, or do I help others in regards to duplicating that type of process? And I found a real stimulation, because I've always been very excited in founding a business and building a business up to about 1.5 million in turnover and really making it a great business. And so I love that small business sector, but I really enjoy supporting people that are either starting in their business or are 2 or 3 years in and want to take their business to the next level. And, some people just get stuck because it is challenging. Business is challenging. So I really am enjoying supporting people to grow their businesses and getting great satisfaction out of that. Now that I'm 47 years of age and a little bit further in the journey, it fits well for my life, and I get great enthusiasm of seeing people surprise themselves.
Yeah, it's always great because in a previous life I was a teacher, and I always love that moment when a student got it. It clicked for them. I was like, that's great. I wish I could have a moment like that every day. And so I suspect it's something like that for you, right?
Absolutely, because it's and a lot of the feedback, even when I was in the businesses, and the lovely feedback that I love getting is going, how did you see that in me when I couldn't see that in myself? And that takes structure to get people to that point, but it's really installing self-belief. It's applying a skill set of incremental improvement. And there seems to be a learning curve where people will just incrementally move along and trend in the right direction. And then there's a massive breakthrough moment where there's an upswing. And I think that it's a pay it forward, because I'm very fortunate that people saw something in me as a young adult that I always didn't see in myself because of self-doubt and fear and whatever that may present in any person. But that hearing the right thing at the right time from a person that believes in you and that has got runs on the board really makes a difference initially to get that person motivated and I guess understanding their own value. And I think that's really important as a foundation to then build momentum from. And I know that we can talk about skill sets all day and actually applying our craft to what we want to achieve, which is important as well, because you've got to take action from that point in a direction you want to go. But it's really important to instill that self-confidence and belief in that person. And when you can see it, there's always going to be people where you go, you know what, they not only do they not see it, they don't want to see it for a reason. And they're not the person that has the willingness to move. But when they have a willingness to move forward and yet there's some self-doubt at play or some fear, it's very fulfilling to build that bridge with them and see them trend all of a sudden in a very accelerated way to attaining the results they want. There's something, and I can imagine as a teacher, you would have those experiences as well. When those students get it, you go, wow, it feels such a privilege to be a part of that. And you're right, that's what I feel. I feel privileged to be a part of that journey with people.
Did you have those moments of self-doubt before you launched your own business or stepping out on your own? Was there somebody, either from yourself or somebody in your life, who was trying to, quote unquote, logically explain to you how it wasn't going to work?
Yeah, I think the majority of people said to me, it was probably 4-1, said to me that, why would you do that? You got a good, stable career. You're 27 years of age. You've got a lot of progression on the corporate ladder. this is crazy having these types of ideas. But my mentor who said, well, you can finish 7th in life, or you can have a go and really see what your capabilities are. And it was coming from a place where he thought I was only in the first gear, and he saw that I had a lot more capability. And I had another friend, Charlie Heary, at the time, who sat across from me at the bank, and he just kept saying to me, Marty, I don't know what it is, but you don't belong here. There's more for you to do. And I'm going, what is he seeing that I'm not?
Yeah.
And I think you just get stuck in the rat race where you go, all right, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm earning my income, so I want to spend that income of having great experiences outside of work. And that's just how it happens. So I think, though, just that kick along from people who believe in me and saw something in myself that I couldn't quite see was enough fuel to make me ask better questions of myself. And then I just did things from, a logical standpoint as well. Like I made the decision in my mind that I wanted to be a business owner, like being in the family business when I was young. But then I built a logical bridge where I made sure I had 6 months of income prior to going into the business. So that way I wouldn't see each client as I need to make this happen or I'm going to starve to death. So I really set some criterias around having a safety net in that transition across. So I jumped off the cliff in my own mind of what I was going to do, but logically I still created a reality where I had a parachute on the way down, so I just didn't crash and end up in a worse position. But still, you still need that motivation and inspiration, and sometimes you need other people to take you through that. And I suffered from I was very extroverted within my family, but I was very introverted, I would say, externally. So at the age of 17, to combat that, I decided to do stand-up comedy, which totally blew that introversion apart. I really set myself a test to go, okay, I really enjoyed Billy Connolly and Robin Williams back in the day, and had a great appreciation of stand-up. And I always thought comedy made things better, and you could always deal with challenge a lot more effectively through smiling and humor. So that really resonated with myself. So I did that, and the first night, not only did no one laugh, no one moved, and it was it was absolutely horrendous. But again, I had a well-known comedian in Australia, come up to me and say, you know what, you're 17, you performed it well. There's something there. Keep going. And I think it was my third gig at the Botanical Hotel in Melbourne, where I got a standing ovation. And Eric Bana, who's the actor, who's a world-famous actor now, wow, he was emceeing that night. And he encouraged me to keep going. And to get a standing ovation, it was just exhilaration. And it was kind of like a buzz, because it was like something that I was getting external appreciation for my internal value and my thoughts. And, and that was really, really interesting. But I got a nice balance then of that introversion and extroversion and brought it all together holistically. And I would say that lighthearted nature really, really supported me in the businesses. That was a bit of a superpower, really. And I think that's why people wanted to be a part of those businesses, because they actually enjoyed being there and doing well. So that was, that was how I overcame self-doubt. And it's just a process. It's like building confidence through action at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. A lot of people say, I need confidence before I start. Well, I think what's more important is to have courage, because the courage to take the action in an area that you want to explore and develop builds that confidence. And, sometimes you're going to make mistakes, and that's just feedback and a part of what happens. And then other times you're going to hit a trend that works, and then it's just a matter of amplifying that. But I think in the early days, I was too afraid when I say early days, I probably made 16. And then again, when I got into a real job, I started to worry about that exploration in regards to what if it didn't work. So for me, it's about really shifting that perspective, and I help people with that to really go, okay, let's find the trend in what makes you happy in what you do and see where the value in the community is towards that. And that's a real sense of purpose, is bringing those talents and, you know, resourcefulness and capabilities together and seeing where that fits in the market. So, yeah. But now, you know, I still go through sometimes doubting moments, but now with wisdom, I can reflect and go, well, hang on, Marty, you know that it's, you know to put in the action and let that emotion subside and move forward. So it still comes up from time to time, but it's a very small dose because I've worked out a way through that. Whereas I see you can get into moments where you can dwell upon that and take months and years to actually start to instigate those movements towards exploration that you want. So yeah, it's not to say it doesn't come up. I'm human like everyone else, and I think it's a healthy thing because you're asking yourself, and the better way is to ask what could go wrong and what could go right. And generally, the emotion goes to both those ends, and usually it's somewhere in the middle. So then you've got to take action to actually explore what the reality actually is. And that's what it comes back to, is what is the reality of your delusion?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, you got your delusions here. We all have delusions, I guess. But would you say your instincts have been a huge asset in your journey?
Definitely. And I think that comes from my father, coming out of war-torn Croatia. He always said, you know, watch what people do, not necessarily what they say. And that's sometimes a lack of trust as well comes with that. But what it did make me do is really have a sense of trusting my instincts on the downside and on the upside as well. So if something's pulling me forward towards something and I can't ignore it, I go, I have to explore this. I have to walk through this door. It keeps pulling me forward. And then there's the other thing that might make sense, but it feels like it's draining energy within me. So it's actually pulling me back, even though logically I might see a pathway, but it feels like it's depleting myself. And you might get this with people as well. And it's not to be judgmental, but you might have conversations with people. You come away going, oh my goodness, I'm absolutely exhausted, and there's a toxicity in it. And then there's other times where you feel uplifted and you go, yeah, I'm naturally drawn to that energy. It's usually for a reason. And again, I don't say that to be judgmental, because I'm very conscious of not being that toxic person to someone else as well. You know, I want to always leave a conversation better than when I first arrived. But I think that instinct has been a big part, particularly in taking that, you know, that comedy leap in something saying to me, you know, humor makes things better. And I like having experiences where people are smiling, because when people are smiling, they're generally listening and they're generally engaging and connecting at a level beyond the logic. It's a very intimate connection, which I really enjoy with people. And it's I've always enjoyed that, and I find that it's almost like a superpower of engagement. And the same in joining the bank, you know, such a big chance, I thought, at the time, in my steady job and good income. But I thought to myself, if I don't explore that, I just think I'll regret it. Something was telling me, you'll regret it. Here's an opportunity of a lifetime. You get it, you get the concept. You think you can bring great value to people in financially empowering them and putting money back into their pocket rather than the banks. And it just kept pulling me forward. And so that's that internal, almost this internal radar that seemed like that's how I met my wife as well. I wasn't looking for a relationship at the time, but when I met her, there was, you know, she was in tracksuit pants, in sweatpants, and, you know, I was the same, coming back from a workout, and just met her and just smiled and thought, oh, I have to get to know this person. There's something more here that needs to be looked at. And it was, and she felt the same. So My instincts have served me well. And yet, I was engaged to a girl before I met Colleen, my wife, and logically it ticked a lot of boxes, but something was off. We got together at 19 and 17 years of age, and I was about 27, I think, when we broke up. But something was saying, this is not going to end well. There's too much obligation on both sides of the fence here. And this is almost an expectation externally that we should get together, and we weren't feeling it. And we've both gone on to have amazing relationships elsewhere. So it's trusting that gut feel where I think most people, would make sense to then have gone through and got married at that stage. Mm. So, probably saved us both a fortune.
Yeah.
So
you didn't do the thing that made sense. You did the thing that you felt was best for both of you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're right, Kyle. And I think we almost get that educated out of us to a certain degree. I think there's a lot of things we learn in life, I think, that is anti-intuitive to how we feel. Mm-hmm. And I think what you're looking at is to make sure the feelings are in alignment and then immersing yourself in developing the skills around that. I think at a deep intuitive level, that's the thing that, like, it didn't make sense to do stand-up comedy. It didn't make sense to start a podcast when you're coming out of the financial sector with a couple of successful businesses. Yeah. It totally doesn't make sense. But you know what makes sense is me doing some disc jockeying as a 14-year-old and taping my favorite football shows and putting them together in a package. And it's the same energy that I love, but it's just now in a more mature adult form. But the same connection still applies to the things that I love. So if I don't explore that, I never experience that fulfillment that I get out of that. And that's the travesty. That's the regret, is the travesty. And I get it. I get, people have responsibilities and they have obligations to family and partners and everything like that. But you also have a right to explore that for yourself. You have an obligation to yourself to free yourself up to explore the things that really bring you joy and make you happy, and develop your skill sets around that, because your acceleration in learning will be so much quicker when you're really connected and aligned to the things that you really enjoy doing. And I think so many people dismiss it because of external factors. And I'm just saying, I just advise people to really open your mind and explore what that is for you, what gives you significance and meaning and enjoyment, and don't lose hope on that, because otherwise you tiptoe silently to retirement for a gold watch. And like most people, then they fall over within 5 to 10 years because they lose their whole identity because they don't know who they really are. And it's a really important factor in that exploration process for a human being, I believe.
Mm-hmm. It was funny you mentioned that sense of obligation during your engagement. When I first met my wife, I went to this little college in the middle of Texas, and there was nothing else to do in that town. I mean, for some reason, a college had popped up there, and there was nothing else to do. But some friends had heard of this little dance hall literally in the middle of nowhere, Texas. We were driving for 45 minutes, and then there it was. I was like, wow, I never would have thought this was here, this old dance hall. And we went with a group, and my wife was in that group. I was in that group, but we hadn't officially been introduced. And I was one of 4 guys, and so I was dancing with all these girls in the group, and really getting out of my shell at the time. And I recognized my wife because we had been in a class together, but I hadn't danced with her yet. And so near the end of the night, I walked up to her and I said, I've danced with all these girls. I feel obligated to dance with you. And she's like, okay. And so we danced. And so, that was my big, entrance into her life. I said, well, I feel obligated to dance with you.
Well, you've utilized it as a superpower, but I believe underneath that option, there was something more. And that's what you've connected into, because something in that classroom drew you forward to find any way to have a dance with that lovely lady. And I think that's a beautiful story. And very much like when I met Colleen, I had just purchased my first house at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and she was looking for a place to stay, for a place to rent. And I just knew she was going to call me. And when she did, I said, of course. And we were friends first, which was wonderful.
Yeah.
And
My
I'd be
wife and
coming
I were
home
friends
fixing
too.
my
Yeah.
tie, and then she'd be doing her hair and putting cheese platters out. And it was just, it was a wonderful, beautiful experience. And I think that, like you said, there was something underneath the obligation, even though you've used the terminology, there was something underneath that
Yeah.
that stood out to you. And that's what that clarity is, that it's like all of a sudden, no one else really exists for a moment. And that's the time to take notice.
Well, it wasn't like that. I mean, it wasn't like the lights dimmed and it was just us in the world. No, it was just me dancing with this attractive woman. And the whole time I'm kicking myself, I'm like, you idiot, you don't tell a woman you're obligated to dance with her. That's not smooth at all. Like, you suck at this. And, I was kicking myself and we were dancing. And, we remained friends because we had, we were in the same kind of social circles.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
we hung out a lot. But I didn't really see her as girlfriend material until the next year for some reason. And like, this was after, I'd tried to pursue other women, and of course they were always interested in another guy. And, I just was like, I'm never going to find anyone. I'm going to die alone. And I'm like 21 at this point.
21.
Yeah. I'm just thinking I'm totally unlovable. No woman has
So
ever.
old.
Yeah. It just was like, I feel I'm staring down the barrel of this spinster life. And I was in the cafeteria getting breakfast, and she walked in, and there was just something about her. And that was the moment. That moment didn't come until later. I saw her, and I thought, why didn't I see this before? And that's when I decided to really pursue her. And I didn't find out till later that she had a crush on me for a while. And so she was very interested in me talking to her, and she reciprocated that. And I was surprised that, hey, this girl wants to talk to me, and, not just talk to me, but continue the conversation. Because sometimes there's that little spark, and then I open my mouth, and that's the end of it. And it didn't happen. It just kept going. I was like, oh my gosh, this is going. And, we ended up dating and getting engaged and getting married. And we've been married for 10 years now, and 2 beautiful daughters. And it was just.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So it was.
But that's beautiful. That's like, but you had to have met. See, this is the serendipity in it.
Yeah, true.
I had met Colleen 7 years before at the Australian Open tennis. And again, the timing wasn't right, but I still remember her catching my attention. But it wasn't the same as it was when, we eventually met that second time. There was a serendipity to it that's quite remarkable. And maybe I wasn't ready. Maybe I wasn't mature enough for the relationship, or vice versa. Who knows? Mm-hmm. But the timing wasn't right. But when the timing was right, then it hit. And I think that's spectacular, because it's so different to the tick and flick. And I remember going out on dates and people actually giving me tick and flick questions, going, where do you work? How much do you earn? Do you want to have kids? I'm going, this is just rubbish. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah, this isn't an interview. Yeah, this isn't an interview.
I know. It felt like a recruitment agency. And that's when I knew with Kyle it was totally different. It was fun. It was lighthearted. It was very open. We both had our best interests at heart. We both support each other to this day in our development, because we're always growing, and she supports me. If ever, you have a dip in the equation in the, where you're not feeling so great, and vice versa, you're just there for each other for the highs, the lows, and everything in between. So it's a wonderful. It's funny and wonderful how it happens, actually, and I'm very pleased that you had that experience, because it is amazing.
Yeah, I'm glad to find out there was those similarities somewhat between you and me, because sometimes we feel that our story, we're all unique, and that nobody has really gone through what we've gone through, so therefore we don't really want to share that because we feel it will make us alien in a way to other people. But what I'm finding as I do more and more ghostwriting and help other people share stories is that there's always these threads that connect them. And even though the story is unique, there's usually one or two threads that connect to other people. And I love finding that in a story, or even just reading other books and, finding out, okay, this author is saying this, and it's kind of similar to what that author said in that book. And it's this thread that just pulls it all together. And, at one point I sat down and thought about it, and it just had this really weird out of body experience. Like, it's all connected, man. That's so crazy. Oh my gosh. And I'm like, I got to stop this, or I'm going to blow a gasket or something. And, it's just too much to handle. But
well, I think you can go down the rabbit hole with that, but it is interesting. The older I've got, the more I realize there are no real, I think everything, people say it's coincidence, but I think there's more to it. And even in the connection of you teaching children, I mean, I think that that human nature to serve and to see that surprise and delight in people that you're supporting, that common thread as a human being. The rest is just, skill sets. But when you're talking about real human connection and understanding people and what they're, who they are, I think it's that's the wonderful. Like, we're connecting from across the world, and yet there are similar tangents waving through. Like you said, it's quite remarkable, and yet it's absolutely perfect. So you go, I find that, and I always think in my teams, it was getting to know the person beyond the result that you were looking for them to get. It was really getting to know their kids, getting to know them as people that made the difference. What are their aspirations? What are their visions? What are their fears and doubts? How do you work through them? How do you build bridges across for that? And it's and that really is a great honor to be a part of that, and vice versa. People have done that for me, but it's been the human. My grade 5 teacher, Laurie Burt, he turned me from a D&E student we have here in Australia. We get graded from A to E in primary school, and I was, for some reason, just not going very well. But he played football. He was a captain of a football club, and he actually taught me through football because I really enjoyed football. So he taught me maths, even English in regard to reading certain magazines to help my literacy. And I went from a D student to an A student within 1 year, 12 months. And I rang him only 4 years ago to thank him because I think that made such an impact in my life. And he said, you know what, Marty, I remember you because I used your social study book for the next 20 years in teaching classes, saying this is what you can do if you apply yourself to learning. And that was just such a thrill to call him and thank him for my journey, and vice versa, hearing that feedback on my social studies project book that I thought has helped so many kids. So your link to teaching kids and seeing that aha moment, I very much get through my own personal journey. So it's a wonderful thing.
Wow. Yeah, that is amazing. Wow. Just having a moment there. Gotta bring myself back down to earth.
We went off. We went off on a different planet there, but we're back.
We're supposed to be talking about career challenges, and here we are talking about the enormity and massiveness of life.
But this is it, Kyle. This is it. This is about, in career, what we forget is the human being at who is actually working the career. So, I mean, if you want to develop people for them to do their best work, get to know them. Get to know what inspires them. Get to know what their perceived limitations are, what their visions are, what drives them, because every individual is unique and different. But when you can elicit that from them in a good relationship, it's amazing what they can do. It is absolutely amazing, whether it's career or business. It's just taking the shackles off, and doing that for another human being is priceless. That's you talk about servitude. That's something that that is the greatest gift you can give to someone, whether it's career, whether it's business, or whether in the transition. So what we're talking about here, transcends the logical tick and flick, as we've talked about before, as in relationships, but it goes really at the core of who we are as human beings, and linking that into their life's best work and performance. So I think we've hit on something really significant.
Wow. And only on my very first episode of the Career Challenges podcast.
The only way is up, Kyle.
Yeah. Where do I go
That's
from here? Oh my gosh. So speaking of where to go, what's next for you and your business, your professional journey?
Yeah, for me, it's very different now to what it used to be. I was very much, I'm goal orientated, but differently. Like I have 3-day goals and doing daily activities in the alignment of, of how I want to express myself in the world. But my vision comes down to enriching people's lives. That is my sole mission and purpose. Now I do that through business because I love business, I love people, and I love working towards a result. But my focus now is just the expansion of enriching lives. That's what I do, and the things we've talked about is really now what my main focus is, because I get to do that every day and I get to see where that expands. So instead of putting and again, not to go off too course, I have like a torchlight in regards to where my expansion is, and I want to do activities within that. But what's happening out of that is projects are opening up for me. The podcast, I want to impact over 1 million business owners to really, really build successful their calling. That's something I'm very, very passionate about. But also in regards to looking at projects, like sometimes I'll get asked to have an equity, I will do that. I say no a lot as well, because there's a lot of stuff that comes across my desk that doesn't really connect with me as to where I want to go. But really it comes back to enriching people's lives and using business as a forum to do that, small business in particular. I love working with people transitioning out of employment into business. Whether that's even podcasting. I'm seeing a lot of people going to podcasting, but 90% of podcasters aren't generating any revenues. And there's a way to do that. And I go, that's where I find my capability is matching my alignment and where I'm serving the best in the market. So it's just an expansion of that at the moment, and to see where that ultimately takes me. Very different to what it used to be. I'd always start with the end in mind with a business, going, here's the exit point. This is what I want to accomplish. This are the qualities around it. Much more logical in that sense. And then I'd follow my instincts. This is more an exploration of ensuring I'm supporting people in attaining the result that they want, which is really interesting for me, because I really have to get to know that person at a whole different level and what they want to achieve. And there's no right or wrong. Success is determined by that person for them. I'm only shedding light and building some skill sets around that. And if there's any limitation stopping them, working through that quickly and effectively for them. So, but that's where my path is heading now. And it's sharing the wisdom of being in the trenches of business for a long, long time.
Wow. So that's really amazing, Marty. Well, we're almost out of time here. Let me just say thank you, Marty, for stopping by. It was a great experience talking with you, and I wish you the best in your professional journey.
Well, I wish you the best too, Kyle. I'm really honoured to be the first on your podcast. It feels amazing, and thanks for reaching out. And we're connected. There you go. That's the power of podcasting, the power of being a human being, and the power of business as well. So I appreciate you reaching out. And just the last thing I'll just say is to people that, time is the only commodity you don't get back. So really, really spend it wisely. Live a meaningful and significant life, what that is for you. The rest can be built upon that foundation. So it's been such an honor. Thank you for allowing me to share my story, Cole.
All right. Well, thank you. And you have a great day.
Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Career Challenges podcast. I apologize for any issues with the recording, so if you need some clarification on what Marty was saying, reach out to him at martyvids.com.au. In the meantime, subscribe to the Career Challenges podcast so you don't miss out on any new episodes. Would you like to be a guest on the Career Challenges podcast? Visit thecareerchallengespodcast.com to find out how you can share your story. Eager to share your story with a wider audience and enhance your brand? Visit weckerlywriter.com. That's WECKERLYWRITER.com to discover how you can begin your author journey. What are you waiting for?